Miranda Larkin seemed to have it all: a beautiful home in the suburbs of Charleston, South Carolina, a steady career as an interior designer, and a 12-year marriage to Foster Larkins, a charming and charismatic businessman. Despite the wear and tear of daily routines, Miranda believed her life was on the right track. However, everything began to shift when Foster announced during dinner that he had hired a new secretary to assist him at the office. Her name is Callista Nivens. Young, talented, and very capable. She's going to help me organize all that paperwork you know I hate, Foster said while cutting into a piece of steak. Miranda smiled, trying to ignore the faint unease she felt hearing the new hire's name. Although she trusted Foster, she couldn't help but feel a pang of curiosity. He rarely spoke about employees with such enthusiasm. Still, she dismissed the thought, convincing herself it was just the result of a tiring day. Yet, the first few weeks after Callista joined the office brought subtle but noticeable changes. Foster began coming home later, always blaming important meetings or urgent tasks. Miranda didn't want to seem like a paranoid wife and avoided asking questions. Even so, she couldn't ignore how different his behavior seemed. One sunny afternoon, while Miranda was organizing paperwork for a client, she received a text message from Foster, having dinner with Callista and the office team to align on a new project. "Don't wait up for me." It was the third time that weak Foster had mentioned his secretary's name. The repetition was starting to bother Miranda, though she tried to brush it off. On Friday, while shopping at the local market, Miranda ran into Janice, a longtime mutual friend. During their chat, Janice asked casually, "Have you met Foster's new secretary yet? I saw her picture on the company's website. Pretty young, huh? He mentioned she's very efficient." The comment, seemingly innocent, left Miranda feeling uneasy. Janice was known for noticing details, and if she was bringing it up, maybe there was more to it than Miranda had realized. She shook her head, dismissing her thoughts. But for the first time, she began questioning whether she had underestimated the situation. When Foster came home late that night, Miranda watched him closely. He seemed distracted, scrolling through his phone as he headed upstairs. It wasn't unusual, but something about his demeanor felt off. Miranda decided not to ask anything, though deep down, she knew something didn't feel entirely right. After that night, Miranda began observing Foster more closely, careful not to show any suspicion. She had always believed in the mutual respect of their marriage, but his recent behavior was creating small cracks in her trust. Their routine seemed unchanged, yet Miranda noticed details that she would have previously overlooked. One morning, while tidying up the kitchen, Miranda found a dinner receipt in Foster's pants pocket while sorting the laundry. The listed restaurant was a high-end bistro, and the date matched one of the nights he had claimed to be in a work meeting. What bothered her most was the description of 2 expensive dishes and a shared dessert. Foster was usually frugal about his expenses, and she knew he would never spend that much on a business dinner. Miranda placed the receipt in the drawer in their living room, deciding it wasn't the right time to confront him. A few days later, during a coffee date with her friend Emery, Miranda casually mentioned Callista's hiring and Foster's recent late nights. Emery, known for her bluntness, didn't hesitate to share her thoughts. "You know, I always say it's better to pay attention to the little signs before they turn into something big. Sometimes it's just paranoia. Other times, well, it doesn't hurt to stay alert." Miranda laughed, trying to mask the discomfort Emery's words stirred. While she didn't want to come across as a controlling wife, Emery had planted a seed of doubt that Miranda couldn't shake. On a rainy afternoon, Miranda decided to stop by Foster's office unannounced. She wanted to surprise him with coffee and perhaps dispel some of the insecurities that had been gnawing at her. When she arrived, she was greeted by Callista, who was polite yet surprisingly self-assured for someone in a subordinate position. "Foster's in a meeting right now. Can I help you with something?" Callista asked with a perfect smile. Miranda thanked her but chose to wait in the reception area. While she waited, she heard muffled laughter coming from the conference room. A mix of jealousy and uncertainty washed over her, but she kept her composure. When Foster finally emerged, he seemed surprised but pleased to see her. "It's so nice to see you here, love. This was unexpected," he said, pulling her into a hug. Despite the embrace, Miranda noticed that Foster seemed nervous. He quickly bid farewell to his colleagues and came over to her, but something about the way Callista looked at him from a distance deeply unsettled her. It was a glance that seemed to say more than it should. On the drive home, Miranda couldn't shake the feeling that she was being left out of something important. She decided not to question him at that moment, but her mind was already racing with questions and theories about what might really be going on. Miranda's discomfort grew with each passing day, but she worked hard to maintain an air of normalcy. She knew that confronting Foster without solid evidence could ruin any chance of resolving the situation clearly. However, his actions were giving her more reasons to suspect something was wrong. One Saturday morning, Foster came home with a small jewelry box. He smiled as he handed it to Miranda, who looked puzzled before opening it. "I got this for you, love. I saw it and thought it suited you," he said as she unwrapped the box, revealing a delicate necklace with a pearl pendant. "It's beautiful, Foster." "Thank you," Miranda replied, smiling, though her heart felt heavy. It was rare for Foster to buy gifts outside of special occasions, and Miranda immediately questioned the unexpected gesture. He seemed overly eager to impress her, as if trying to divert her attention from something. But more than that, Miranda's intuition told her there was something hidden beneath the surface. That evening, while organizing the living room drawer where she had stored the restaurant receipt, Miranda noticed something curious. The name of the jewelry store on the necklace's receipt was the same name printed on a paper bag she had seen in Foster's office weeks earlier during her visit. At the time, she hadn't thought much of it, but now it seemed more than a coincidence. Did he buy the same gift for someone else? She thought, trying to push away the disturbing idea. However, the more she reflected, the stronger her doubts became. The next day, Miranda decided to do something she had never done before: investigate Callista's social media. Although her account was private, her profile pictures revealed a confident and sophisticated woman, always wearing elegant accessories. In one of them, Miranda noticed something that made her tense. Callista was wearing a necklace strikingly similar to the one Foster had given her. A wave of shock ran through her. Miranda tried to convince herself it might just be a coincidence, but at the same time, her unease was turning into a mix of anger and sadness. The feeling of being deceived, even without definitive proof, was becoming harder to ignore. Foster noticed Miranda had become more introspective, but she resisted the urge to confront him at that moment. She felt she needed more information before making any decisions. Yet, deep inside her, something was beginning to break. Determined to confirm her suspicions, Miranda decided to take a more assertive approach. The restaurant receipt she had found earlier kept haunting her mind. She needed answers, and she knew the only way to get them was by visiting the place where Foster had supposedly dined that night. On a quiet afternoon, Miranda dressed up and drove to the restaurant listed on the receipt, a discreet but sophisticated bistro located in a busy area of the city. As she entered, she was greeted by a smiling hostess. "Good afternoon, how can I help you?" the young woman asked politely. Miranda smiled, feigning nonchalance. "Actually, yes. My husband dined here recently and mentioned how much he loved it. I'd like to know which table he used so we can request the same one next time." The hostess, though surprised by the request, quickly checked the system. "What's his name?" she asked. "Foster Larkins." The young woman typed a few details into the computer and, within seconds, replied, "Oh yes, Mr. Larkins was here earlier this month. He requested a table in our private dining room. It's a more secluded area, ideal for meetings or quiet gatherings." Miranda felt a pang in her chest but maintained her smile. "Thank you. That sounds perfect. We'll definitely book it next time." As she walked out of the restaurant, Miranda was filled with a mix of anguish and anger. Why would Foster need such a private space? It was clear that this wasn't an ordinary business meeting. Now, more than ever, she felt something was being hidden from her. Back in her car, Miranda couldn't stop imagining Foster sitting at that private table with Callista, laughing and exchanging intimate glances. The thought made her furious, but she decided she couldn't confront him without more information. She needed to plan her next steps carefully. After her visit to the restaurant, Miranda decided she needed to watch Foster more closely. Until now, her suspicions were based on coincidences and intuition, but now she wanted something concrete. Without sharing her thoughts with anyone, she planned a day to follow him. On a Wednesday afternoon, Foster left home claiming he had an important meeting with a client. Dressed impeccably, he kissed Miranda quickly and left. As soon as he turned the corner, Miranda got into her car and discreetly followed his route to work. Foster drove straight to the city center, but instead of heading to his office, he parked in front of a discreet but elegant boutique hotel. Miranda parked on a side street, her heart racing as she watched Foster get out of his car. He seemed calm, adjusting his suit jacket before walking into the hotel. Miranda sat frozen for a few minutes, trying to decide what to do. The idea of entering the hotel terrified her, but her need for answers was stronger. She decided to wait in her car to see if anyone else arrived. Nearly half an hour later, she saw Callista walking toward the hotel, dressed in a tailored blazer and carrying a folder. She paused at the entrance, glanced around, and then walked in with determination. Miranda's world seemed to stop. Images of Foster and Callista together inside that hotel flooded her mind with a mix of anger, pain, and humiliation. But instead of acting impulsively, Miranda decided she needed more proof. She knew that a mere accusation without solid evidence wouldn't be enough. With trembling hands, she took her phone out of her pocket and discreetly snapped pictures of Callista entering the hotel. Although it didn't confirm anything, it was a start. Her next step was clear. She would hire a professional to uncover the truth. When Foster returned home that night, acting as if nothing had happened, Miranda managed to keep up the facade. She knew the truth would eventually come to light, but she needed to play smart. With every fake smile Foster gave, Miranda's determination grew. She would not be deceived any longer. Miranda spent a sleepless night, replaying the images of Foster and Callista entering the hotel. The feeling of betrayal suffocated her, but instead of giving in to anger, she made a decision. She would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The next morning, Miranda reached out to Emery, her trusted friend. Though hesitant to share something so personal, she knew she needed support. After hearing the story, Emery suggested Miranda hire a private investigator. "You need proof, Miranda. Something that gives you clarity and allows you to act with certainty. If you try to handle this based on assumptions alone, you could end up hurting yourself even more," Emery said, holding Miranda's hands. After researching several options, Miranda contacted Zane Fielder, a well-known private investigator renowned for his discretion. In a quiet cafe downtown, she explained the situation. Zane, a man with a calm demeanor and sharp eyes, listened patiently as Miranda poured out her story. "I'll be honest, Miranda. These cases can be emotionally draining, but if something is happening, we'll find the truth. I want you to be prepared for any outcome," he said while jotting down details. Miranda agreed, feeling a mix of relief and fear. For the first time, she felt like she was taking control of the situation. However, the weight of uncertainty was still overwhelming. In the days that followed, Zane began discreetly tracking Foster. He monitored Foster's movements during times Miranda couldn't. The first 48 hours revealed nothing unusual, but on the afternoon of the third day, Zane called Miranda. "I need you to see something. Can we meet tonight?" he asked, withholding further details. Miranda's heart raced. She knew the truth was closer than ever, but whatever Zane had discovered could change her life forever. That evening, Miranda met Zane at his office. He showed her photos and reports that confirmed her worst fears. Foster and Callista had been meeting regularly outside the office, always in secluded locations. In one of the photos, taken at the same hotel Miranda had seen, Foster and Callista were sharing a moment of undeniable intimacy. Miranda felt tears streaming down her face, but instead of breaking down, she lifted her head. Now she had the truth in her hands, and she knew the next step was hers to take. With the evidence in hand, Miranda began observing Foster even more closely. Every gesture, every word he spoke now seemed laden with hidden meaning. Anger simmered within her, but she knew a direct confrontation was not yet the best choice. She needed a plan that would expose the truth clearly and definitively. That night, Foster came home late again, using the usual excuse of endless meetings. Miranda silently watched as he took off his jacket and carefully hung it over a chair. He seemed relaxed, unaware that Miranda knew about his meetings with Callista. "How was your day?" she asked, her voice calm but laced with subtle tension. "Exhausting but productive," he replied, pouring himself a glass of wine. "And yours?" Miranda held his gaze, resisting the urge to throw the photos on the table and demand answers. Instead, she smiled and replied, "The usual. Took care of some things for my clients." As he talked about trivial matters, Miranda listened, but her mind was busy formulating the next step in her plan. She knew she couldn't keep the secret for much longer without breaking down. She decided it was time to set the stage for the truth to come out. The next morning, Miranda called Emery and asked for her help in organizing a dinner at her house. She planned to invite Foster and a few close friends, including Zane, to create an environment where the truth could be revealed in a controlled manner. Emery, though concerned, agreed to help. "Are you sure this is what you want to do?" Emery asked. "I'm not waiting any longer, Emery. It's time he faces the consequences," Miranda said, her voice resolute. In the days leading up to the dinner, Miranda maintained her facade. Foster suspected nothing and seemed content with the routine that concealed his betrayal. But Miranda knew everything was about to change. The day of the dinner arrived, and Miranda ensured every detail was perfect but filled with purpose. The table was elegantly set, with flawless plates and glasses. She knew she needed to exude calm and control, even as her heart raced wildly. Foster, suspecting nothing, appeared relaxed and excited about the casual gathering. The guests began arriving. Emery was the first, bringing a bottle of wine and an encouraging look. Shortly after, Zane entered, blending in as a longtime friend of Emery. Other close friends joined, creating a friendly and relaxed atmosphere. Miranda greeted everyone with a serene smile, but inside, a storm was ready to erupt. During dinner, Miranda watched Foster closely. He was at the center of conversations, cracking jokes and engaging with the guests. It was hard to believe that this attentive man was hiding such a devastating secret. However, Miranda knew that in just a few minutes, his facade would crumble. As the dinner concluded and the dishes were cleared, Miranda cleared her throat, drawing everyone's attention. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight. This dinner is special to me because it represents more than just a meal among friends. It's about honesty and the importance of truth." Foster looked at her curiously, unaware of the weight behind her words. Miranda took a deep breath, fighting to maintain her composure. She retrieved a folder hidden in a nearby drawer and placed it on the table. "Foster, I think you owe everyone here an explanation," she said, opening the folder and spreading the photos and reports Zane had gathered across the table. Silence filled the room. Foster turned pale as he saw the images of his meetings with Callista. His eyes darted to Miranda's, but she met his gaze with unwavering firmness. "Care to explain this?" Miranda asked, her voice controlled but filled with indignation. Foster stammered excuses and initially denied everything, but the avalanche of evidence left him speechless. The friends present, initially shocked, began offering support to Miranda, while Foster remained silent. Zane, who had stayed quiet until then, intervened professionally. All of this documentation was gathered discreetly but thoroughly. There's no room for doubt. Foster's humiliation was evident. He tried to argue, but Miranda was no longer willing to listen. She stood up and, with the dignity of someone who knows her worth, ended the discussion. "There's nothing more to say. Now it's my turn to decide what happens next." After the dinner, the atmosphere in Miranda's house was heavy with tension. The guests gradually left, many hugging Miranda and offering words of support. Foster, however, remained seated in the living room, silent, his head bowed, unable to face what had just happened. When the last person left, Miranda closed the door and turned to Foster. The silence between them was almost deafening. He finally lifted his eyes, trying to find a trace of empathy in her expression, but all he saw was resolve. "Miranda, he began, but she raised her hand to stop him. "No, not today. You had the chance to be honest, but you chose to lie. There's nothing more you can say that will change what you've done." Foster tried to speak, but every word seemed to falter before it could be said. He knew any excuse would fall short. "What are you going to do?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Miranda took a deep breath, crossing her arms as she looked at him. "I don't know yet. What I do know is that I need time to think, away from you. This house used to be where I felt safe, but now it's just a reminder of your betrayal." Foster attempted to approach her, but Miranda took a step back, signaling she didn't want him near. She made it clear he needed to leave the house that night. As Foster hurriedly packed a bag, Miranda went to the bedroom and shut the door, fighting to hold back her tears. Despite her firm stance, the pain was overwhelming. The man she loved and trusted had betrayed her in an unforgivable way. When Foster finally left, Miranda allowed herself to break down. Sitting on the bedroom floor, she cried silently, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. Asking him to leave hadn't been easy, but she knew it was necessary. The next morning, Emery arrived with coffee and croissants, ready to support her friend. Miranda recounted everything that had happened after the dinner, and together, they began to plan her next steps. Miranda knew she needed strength to move forward, but for now, she allowed herself to simply feel. It was the beginning of a new chapter, and though painful, she knew it was necessary. With Foster out of the house, Miranda spent the first few days adjusting to her new reality. The silence, which had once been comforting, now felt like a constant reminder of what she had lost. However, she knew this period of pain would be temporary. Determined to find strength amidst adversity, Miranda began to rebuild her life. The first change was symbolic. She decided to redecorate the house. The living room, which had witnessed so many lies, needed a new meaning. With Emery's help, Miranda chose new colors, furniture, and decorations that reflected her personality rather than the remnants of a broken marriage. Each choice was a step toward reclaiming herself. During this process, Miranda reconnected with hobbies she had abandoned over the years. She returned to a yoga class she loved and, encouraged by Emery, joined a local book club. Through these activities, she realized her life didn't need to revolve around Foster or what he had done. There was a world of possibilities waiting for her. Zane, the private investigator, also became an unexpectedly steady presence in her life. After the revealing dinner, he would occasionally check in to see how Miranda was doing, offering advice and even a quiet friendship. He never overstepped, but Miranda grew to appreciate their conversations. Ironically, the man who had exposed Foster's betrayal now seemed to be one of the anchors keeping her steady. One afternoon, over coffee with Zane, Miranda found herself venting about her frustrations and hopes. He listened attentively, without judgment, and responded with a simplicity that surprised her. "You're stronger than you think, Miranda. Don't let someone else's mistake define what you deserve." His words lingered in Miranda's mind. For the first time, she began to believe she could truly start over, that her life wouldn't be defined by Foster's betrayal but by how she chose to move forward. That evening, as she admired the new painting she had hung in the living room, Miranda smiled. It was a small step, but it symbolized something greater. She was rediscovering her strength and slowly rebuilding herself. As weeks passed, Miranda felt she was slowly regaining her emotional independence. The pain was still there, but it was increasingly becoming a reminder of what she had overcome rather than a constant burden. It was during this period of rebuilding that fate delivered an unexpected surprise. One sunny afternoon, Miranda decided to take a walk through the local park, something she hadn't done in years. As she strolled, enjoying the sound of leaves rustling in the breeze, she became lost in thoughts about the recent changes in her life. Then, as she rounded a corner, she bumped into someone. The books the person was carrying fell to the ground, and Miranda, startled, hurried to help. "Sorry, I didn't see you," she began, but stopped when she looked at the man's face. It was Zane. "Miranda," he said, surprised, as he bent down to pick up the books. Both of them laughed at the unexpected encounter. It was curious how their lives, which had crossed paths for such tumultuous reasons, now seemed to align in a moment of chance. After a few seconds of light conversation, Zane suggested, "How about a coffee? Looks like we could both use a break." Miranda hesitated for a moment but agreed. They walked to a nearby cafe and sat at a table by the window. The atmosphere was cozy, and for the first time in a long while, Miranda felt at ease, as if the weight she carried had temporarily lifted. During their conversation, Miranda noticed something different about Zane. He was more than just a meticulous investigator. There was a humanity in him that she hadn't fully appreciated before. He spoke about his passion for photography and how he started working as a detective to help people in difficult situations, something that felt far removed from the initial image she had of him. "And what about you?" Zane asked with a warm smile. "What's next for Miranda?" She paused for a moment, thinking about the question. For the first time, she didn't feel lost. "I think I'm figuring that out, little by little. For the first time, I'm truly learning who I am." Zane nodded as if he completely understood what she meant. They talked for hours, and when they finally said goodbye, Miranda felt something different. It wasn't love, but a genuine connection, something that reminded her life still held many possibilities. That day, as she walked home, Miranda smiled to herself. The encounter with Zane had been a reminder that, even after the most devastating storms, the sun could shine again. The following months brought Miranda a sense of renewal. Each day was an opportunity to reconnect with herself and explore a new version of her life. While the emotional scars were still there, they now served as reminders of her strength and resilience. Miranda decided to invest more in her career as an interior designer, taking on challenging projects that helped her focus on the future. One such project involved renovating a local art gallery, a place she had always admired. During the renovations, Miranda became immersed in the creative world, engaging with artists and creatives who brought a fresh energy to her routine. In this environment, she began to see how art had the power to transform, not just spaces but people as well. Zane, on the other hand, remained a discreet presence in her life. He respected Miranda's space, but their occasional conversations became something she looked forward to. They met now and then for coffee or a walk, and these interactions deepened the genuine friendship they were building. One evening, Miranda was invited to the reopening of the gallery she had helped renovate. Wearing an elegant black dress, she arrived at the event feeling confident and light. As she mingled with the guests, Zane appeared, clearly impressed by the work she had done. "This is incredible, Miranda. You can see how much of yourself you put into this project," he said with an admiring smile. Miranda thanked him, feeling warmed by his words. They spent the evening talking about art, future projects, and how both of them were learning to appreciate life's small joys. For the first time, Miranda allowed herself to imagine the possibility of opening her heart again. There was no rush, but just considering it was a significant step forward. As the evening came to a close, Miranda looked at the gallery, illuminated and full of life, and felt a deep sense of pride. She had overcome a painful chapter of her life and transformed it into strength to move forward. Walking out under the city lights alongside Zane, Miranda felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. If you like this story, subscribe to the channel and press the like button. Thank you.